How's it going? It looks fantastic. You know, it's really interesting to see the way architecture fits into this film. It seems like there's a lot of symbols and structures in there. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Is that part of the...
Well, I've always been interested in architecture, and I've always been interested in the relationship of films to architecture. So really what the film deals with is the world of dreams and a set of people who can construct a dream. And so to me, the figure of the architect, that seemed like the mind that should be behind that type of creation. So the film really tries to fuse a lot of different things that I've been interested in for quite a long time.
That's great. And Emma, you have this fantastic cast. I mean, it starts right at the top with Leo. Tell us a little bit about him and maybe some of the other folks in the movie.
Well, this was kind of the dream cast for us because obviously there's Leo, who we've been trying to work with for a really long time, but never quite found the right thing. So that was great. And Michael Caine, who we've worked with before, Navi, Cillian Murphy, and then there was some really great talents that we've never worked with before, and we're lucky enough to sort of get in one place for this, like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's just brilliant, and Ellen Page, and Tom Hardy, who's a really amazing actor. It was a dream come true.
You know, it was great. I got a chance to go on the set and see you guys there, and it's fascinating, the movies that you make. There's such a priority put on practical effects. And I know that it's a signature for you as far as the sort of the tactile feel of the universe that you create. Could you talk a little bit about that and then maybe some of the particular innovations you guys had to do with some of the sets on this one?
Well, I've always been interested in trying to achieve as many of the effects in camera as possible. I feel that the audience's relationship with the material on screen is greatly enhanced if the material has a tactile quality, if it's something that you can invest in and believe in. I think that really comes in a large part from the era in which I grew up, when the big movies of the 70s were being made. They didn't have access to computer graphics and so forth, and so things had to be done either through extraordinary stunt work or building extraordinary sets, or through enhancement using miniatures and the optical effects at the time. So I have a great fondness really for the large-scale films that really try to create a world that you could get lost in a very credible manner. And so I've tried to preserve that as a working methodology, and then we use newer technologies where they're appropriate. And certainly in the piece we've just shown, there are some extremely sophisticated sort of computer effects, but we try and have everything based on something we've shot in camera, including the last shot of the trailer that's based on a helicopter shot that we actually shot out in Morocco.
Yeah. And then, tell us a little bit about some of the sets. I mean, you guys had some pretty fantastic stuff. I know Joseph had a particularly grueling...
Yeah, Joe had a tough time with it. We had to teach him how to do all kinds of things on sets that would change their attitude. They would rotate, they would tilt, they would do all kinds of interesting things. I grew up being a huge fan of Stanley Kubrick's 2001, and I was always extremely fascinated by the idea of having a set that could move in a particular way so as to distort the appearance of gravity or the function of gravity within an environment. And that's very much part of the story we're telling at key moments. And so Joe thankfully was on board with learning how to do this. It's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, pretty athletic performance.
Very much.
Yeah. So Emma, I mean, you guys had the great success with Dark Knight. Anybody like that movie? $1 billion movie and universally acclaimed. And you could have gone and made a smaller film after that. It seems like you guys actually tried to do something even bigger. I mean, did you film in how many countries on this?
Yeah, we shot in 6 countries on this, and then I think on The Dark Knight we only shot 3. And Inception is an interesting one because and Chris hates when I say this because it makes it sound small, and it's really not. It's a much more personal film. I think but that doesn't have to mean that it's small. It's actually ginormous. And I think that the thing that was really exciting about where we found ourselves after the Dark Knight was that it was an opportunity to make a film that I think in some ways it's unlike anything I've ever really seen before, as a whole. And with the success of The Dark Knight, we found ourselves in a place where we could actually do that. And I think that 8 years ago, when Chris first started thinking about this script, we would never have been in a position to make the film. So.
That's great. And then, and you've been fascinated with dreams for a long time. And could you talk a little bit about the sort of the heritage of this story in your own life as far as dreams and sort of?
Well, yeah, I've always been fascinated by dreams, really by the idea that when you think about what a dream is, when you think about what your mind is doing during a dream, the mind is creating a world and perceiving it simultaneously, which to me is one of the more extraordinary functions of the human mind, and something that suggests almost infinite possibilities for the creative potential of our minds. And I've been looking for a way to explore that, really for many years. And about 10 years ago, I came up with the idea of addressing it through the structure of a heist film. I mean, Inception really, in some ways, is a heist film. It's about a group of individuals who have the ability to construct a dream for someone, take them into that dream, and in that way access their subconscious, to steal thoughts from them, that kind of thing. And so, whilst there's a science fiction premise at the heart of it, really it's in a recognizably contemporary world. There's a small leap in terms of the technology in a science fiction sense, but then beyond that, we've really just tried to make a very grand scale action film that looks at these ideas, but at the same time, hopefully it's a very entertaining ride.
Great to have you here, Chris. Really great. So, first off, I actually saw your first movie, Following, a few months ago, which was great. Glad I finally got to see it. Now, and I notice a lot of your movies rely on ensemble casts. How do you choose the casts, and how do you work with them?
I try, when I'm writing, to not think of actors, particular actors, because I think that's inherently limiting to a character, because you'll be writing something else you've seen that actor do. So I try at script stage to be just writing pure characters, in a sense. And then at a certain point, you start engaging in the fun process of thinking, okay, who could do this? What cast could we put together? And I've been very fortunate through the films I've made to work with some really amazing actors, and I have some incredible ensembles. And really, the main thing about working with great actors I've found is that they're all completely different, but they all have this extraordinary ability to relate to the needs of the other actor, to find a way to accommodate each other's working methods. And it's a very exciting process to watch, and I enjoy it very much.
Thank you.
Hello.
Oh, how you doing? I just want to say that you're my favorite director of all time. I love your work, man. Your style, your essence, and like the psychological undertones I really relate to and appreciate. And you inspire me, I swear, to actually be a filmmaker myself. What I'm wondering is, like, what inspires you? That's a broad question, but like, what inspires you, man?
What inspires me? More and more real life inspires me, but what inspired me to begin with was just, as so many of you are, just a huge film fan. And the films of, I would say, primarily Ridley Scott. Blade Runner was an enormous influence on me, and I carry that into every film I make somehow. Stanley Kubrick, Terrence Malick, Nicholas Roeg, just the extraordinary work of the body of great directors, I think, primarily. And I know that almost anybody who's sat here today will have talked about seeing Star Wars for the first time, because for my generation that truly was a watershed moment, and something that fed my initial enthusiasm for making films, and it's stuck with me. But I think that as I get older, and as I've had the opportunity to make more films, which I feel very grateful for, more and more I find that real life and my life inspires me more, and I try and work that more into the material I'm working on.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
You know, the Star Wars was such a moment in cinema history, and now we're seeing a different trend with 3D, and that seems to be the real sensation in a lot of ways. It's an interesting thing to look at. I'm wondering how you sort of frame it, what we see with 3D in these.
Well, I think it's always been an interesting approach to simulating reality, to add parallax to the image, but there are interesting aspects to it, but I think that what people tend to forget is that 2D imaging is actually a representation of 3 dimensions. 2D is the Flintstones or Hanna-Barbera cartoons. So a lot of thought has to go into, okay, what would the purpose of that be? Certainly with Inception, in an interesting way, there are all kinds of things in the film that would lend themselves to that approach. It's something we're looking at. But at the same time, I've always been a student of technology and imaging technology in films, and one of the things that I always try and stick to more than anything else is a rigorous approach to the image quality. And certainly as far as acquisition formats go, there's simply nothing out there that competes with film, particularly large format film. And so we're doing tests on various ways of post-converting and this sort of thing, and we'll see what we see. For me, primarily story must always come first, obviously. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about the different processes and the different directions cinema is heading. There's a lot of hype, a lot of misinformation. We try to keep a calm head and give the audience the most immersive experience possible. That's the approach we take.
Outstanding. Hey there, how you doing?
Hi. First off, Chris, thank you for making Batman badass again, and The Dark Knight's the greatest film of all time. I just wanted to thank you for that. My main question, I know I've been watching all the extras and all the interviews, how you wanted to make more films in IMAX for the IMAX cameras. And I couldn't tell from Inception if you were trying to go for that or you're going to wait for the future Batman films or whatever films you're going to be associated with, like the Superman films you're now going to be overseeing.
Well, we shot, on Inception we've shot 35mm anamorphic is the main format. We've also shot 65mm portions, VistaVision portions. So we have a very high quality negative that we're working with. We're certainly going to do an IMAX conversion. But in addressing the world of dreams, it's very important to me that it be done in a very realistic fashion, because as Leo says in the material I showed you, dreams feel completely real while we're experiencing the dreams. And so the approach we take in the film is to try and have a bit of grit to that, to try and have a documentary feel to certain aspects of it. And 35mm felt like the best way to do that. We've had very good success over the years in converting that type of negative into different formats. As far as shooting in IMAX goes, I love doing it. It's tremendous. It wouldn't have suited this film exactly, simply because of the size of the cameras and the difficulties involved. We're really trying to be much lighter on our feet. I mean, as you can see, we had a cameraman skiing down the side of a mountain, and even I wouldn't make somebody do that with an IMAX camera. It's very unfair. But as far as the future goes, it's really back to my answer to the previous question. There is no finer film format than that large negative format. 65mm comes close, 65mm 5-po. So it's something we're always looking to try and expand. I think that when you're fortunate enough to be given large budgets to work with, I think you have a real responsibility to the audience to try and do things in the most technically advanced way possible, particularly in terms of image quality. So that's something we're always striving to perfect. Right?
Hello. Christopher Nolan, jeez. My husband's going to be so jealous of this moment. I'm going to ask a quick question. So there are a lot of twisted male characters that are featured in your films, and I was wondering any chance of, in the future, of featuring a twisted female character?
Well, you can answer that one. I wouldn't want to give away too much about what Inception is, but there's certainly, I think Marion Cotillard is an extraordinary actress. She plays without giving too much away about her role in the film, I think she plays an extremely, I would say, complicated individual, and she gives a pretty fascinating performance. So I think wait to see the film, and then I'll answer the question at the next convention.
Thank you very much.
I think that was just a slide Catwoman trick question. I really
I think it would have been if it was coming from you, Jim.
Okay, we got time for one last question.
Yes, I wanted to ask, you spent a lot of time in a dream world in this movie. What type of research, I know you shot it to be like a documentary format, but what type of research did you do into dream logic to create this world? What type of books do you read or research did you do? Who did you consult?
Well, without getting into a sort of list of things, it is something I've paid a lot of attention to over the years. And certainly, I did a series of interviews and conversations with people who knew a lot about the field. But primarily, I always go, rather than to research, I go to try and understand my own experience. And the film deals a lot with the concept of lucid dreaming. And I've always been interested in that very light state of sleep that some of you will be familiar with. After you wake up too early perhaps and you try and go back to sleep. And in that light sleep state, you can become aware of the fact that you're dreaming. And in becoming aware of it, you can manipulate the dream or control the dream in a frustratingly elusive way, but you can just get hints of that. And so I always try, with films like Memento, or really any of the films I've done, to try and write from a subjective perspective. I try not to worry too much about how other people experience these things, but try and be true to the way it feels to me, particularly dealing with something as subjective an experience as dreams are. I think the only way to tell a cohesive story is really to look inside yourself and do something that feels true to you, and hope that other people are going to relate to it in some way.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Inception opens on July 16th, and Wondercon, how about a big thank you for Emma Thomas and Christopher Nolan.